Lloyd was an orphan who ended up being adopted by the most powerful S-rank wizard, eventually becoming an adventurer himself. Yet his party ended up kicking him out because they saw him as nothing more than a useless support mage. The truth, however, was that no one except his mentor knew he was actually the destined hero who would one day bring down the Demon King. When Lloyd was still a young boy, his hometown was completely destroyed in the Demon King's attack. Somehow, he survived, and an S-rank adventurer wizard named Merlin found him. She, too, had lost someone dear in that same battle, and perhaps as a way to cope with her grief, she decided to adopt Lloyd and take him in as her apprentice. Upon bringing him to her home, the first thing she did was conjure a blazing fireball out of thin air. She told the startled Lloyd that if he couldn't produce fire through magic by evening, he would have to go without dinner. Lloyd spent the entire day determined to make it work, and when he finally succeeded, he eagerly rushed to show Merlin. She gave him a dry remark about doing well, promptly blew out his tiny flame, then roasted him figuratively and literally, saying he still had a long journey ahead. Soon after, she demonstrated how to draw water straight from the earth. Lloyd managed to pull it off instantly on his first try, but instead of praising him, Merlin responded with her trademark sarcasm and drenched him in a torrent of water, showing him this was how it should truly be done. Days rolled by, and Lloyd kept learning various forms of magic. Yet no matter what he did, Merlin was never satisfied. Even when he crafted a detailed ice sculpture in her likeness, she animated the statue with magic, had it grab him, then enlarged it just to point out that his abilities still weren't enough. She shattered the sculpture, dropping him to the ground, and the naive Lloyd accepted her words, vowing to work harder to improve. A few days later, Merlin suffered a brutal hangover, and Lloyd healed her with magic. The first thing she did upon recovery was give him a warm hug and thank him, though moments later she dragged him outside for more practice. Time continued to pass until one night Merlin sat studying ancient texts, her face marked with unease and pain. Lloyd walked in to call her for dinner, and as she stood up, the book slipped from her hands. Lloyd bent to help her pick it up, and the instant his fingers touched it, every bit of knowledge within the tome flooded into his mind, knocking him unconscious. Merlin panicked, realizing he had just absorbed an ancient spell simply by contact, a sign that he bore the traits of the Chosen One. This stirred up traumatic memories from her past, and she resolved not to let Lloyd fall into the same mistakes she once made. That night, while Lloyd slept soundly, Merlin entered his room and placed a sealing spell on his forehead through a gentle kiss, locking away the knowledge of that dangerous magic. She wanted to ensure he would not come to rely too much on his own overwhelming power. To steer him toward a safer path, she even advised him to become a white mage, one who specialized in supporting other adventurers. She taught him restorative spells that could make fruit ripen instantly, then casually demonstrated her own far superior ability by reviving the dying tree with ease. From then on, Merlin continued to train him in magic and general knowledge, but whenever the subject of ancient spells arose, she dismissed it by claiming such magic had vanished centuries ago. More time went by, and one day she blindfolded Lloyd, led him deep into a forest teeming with dangerous beasts, and handed him only a small knife. She ordered him to return home within a week using his magic, then vanished without giving him a chance to speak. Left standing there confused and anxious, Lloyd soon encountered a wolf monster. He barely escaped its attacks by scrambling up a nearby tree, quickly realizing that the healing and support spells he knew couldn't defeat such creatures. His only option was to make the trek home while staying out of danger. First, he used his magical sensing ability to locate the direction of home and began walking toward it. Along the way, he used magic to ripen wild fruits for food. At night, he worked on inventing new spells that could help him survive, like things to boost his speed or locate resources. Step by step, he moved through the perilous forest, continuing his solitary journey while experimenting with magic that could keep him fed, protected, and moving forward. The next day, Lloyd nearly ends up as breakfast for a giant spider monster, but thanks to the speed-enhancing spell he created, he manages to escape unharmed. He refuses to drop the spell until he reaches home, and the moment he arrives at the door, his body finally gives in, and he collapses from pure exhaustion. Time moves on quickly, and Lloyd grows into a teenager who begins to take an interest in the world beyond his home after stumbling across a magazine about the nearby city. Merlin's way of dealing with him changes too. Instead of dragging him out to practice spells, she now interrupts his daily chores to push him into creating completely new magic techniques. Her ideas tend to pop up at the most random times, and she forces him to work through the night after night, to bring them to life. The endless pressure becomes too much for Lloyd, and one evening, he makes up his mind to leave home and explore the outside world. The next morning, Merlin finds his room empty, with nothing left behind except the city magazine lying on the desk. She instantly realizes her boy has reached the rebellious stage. Meanwhile, Lloyd reaches the bustling city and quickly gets swept into its fast pace. He spends nearly all the money he brought on food, and wonders how he might earn more, when suddenly a recruitment flyer for an adventuring party smacks into his face. Without noticing that a stranger is quietly watching him from a distance, Lloyd decides to try his luck at becoming an adventurer. His first mission with the party turns out to be facing a cyclops, which excites him since he has never seen anyone fight such a dangerous creature before. The cyclops starts overwhelming Alan, the leader and main attacker of the group, who calls for the healer to cast a healing spell on him. Lloyd joins in by instantly placing a support enchantment on every member of the party, though no one seems to realize it. The archer lands a shot straight into the cyclops' eye, blinding it, and as the monster lashes out at the archer, the party's tanker, Rena, steps in to block. She's stunned to feel almost no force behind the creature's blow. Meanwhile, the party mage restrains the cyclops, giving Alan the perfect opening to finish it with one decisive slash. This victory makes Alan a local celebrity overnight, hailed by the people as a hero. Lloyd, on the other hand, is completely overlooked, and given only a handful of coins as payment because he is considered just another low-tier white mage. He accepts the meager amount, believing that is all his efforts are worth. When Alan suggests a celebratory drink, Lloyd quickly declines, explaining he doesn't drink. The women in the group are annoyed that he turned Alan down, but Alan himself doesn't care. He never truly saw Lloyd as part of the team anyway. To him, all white mages are dead weight, only included to meet guild requirements, and it makes no difference whether Lloyd or someone else fills the role. Rena, however, has her doubts. She senses there is something unusual about Lloyd that no one else seems to be noticing. Meanwhile, the person keeping a secret watch on Lloyd is revealed to be Merlin's informant, who delivers her regular updates about her former student. Merlin says she has no concern about him as long as he doesn't grow arrogant. The spy then asks if she regrets what happened in the past, which causes her to bite her lip as memories flood back, memories of the battle against the Demon Lord when she fought alongside the hero Sybil. Unable to defeat them, the Demon Lord chose to self-destruct, wiping out an entire city in the process. Sybil then used ancient magic to revive everyone killed in the attack, but in doing so, he sacrificed his own life. Losing him struck Merlin deeply. While adopting Lloyd began as nothing more than a way to cope with that pain, she never expected him to turn out to be a chosen one like Sybil. She swears to herself that she will not repeat her mistakes and will do whatever it takes to keep Lloyd safe. Back in the city, Alan's fame continues to rise as he slays more powerful monsters, thanks to Lloyd's unnoticed support magic. Only Rena, with her vague suspicions, has any idea of the truth. One night, Alan receives a request from soldiers to eliminate a group of golems that have been killing troops near a patrol station. Confident it will be an easy task, Alan accepts. The party travels to the patrol site, and Lloyd uses his magic sense to locate the enemy, discovering they will have to go behind a waterfall to reach them. Once they enter, Alan engages the golems, but the fight becomes harder when a summoner begins creating fresh ones to replace each defeat. Lloyd realizes that the summoner is using a magic stone to create new golems, and he quickly buffs the archer, telling her to shoot the summoner. She follows his instructions, and her arrow somehow curves around a pillar to strike the summoner in the chest. Lloyd then instructs the wizard to teleport the magic staff to him, and he immediately seals it as well. This does not sit well with Alan, who believes that only he has the authority to give orders to his party. Alan then decides to focus on the golem, but Lloyd warns him to step back because the creature is out of control after losing its master. Ignoring the warning, Alan charges ahead, forcing Lloyd to use a special magic to catch up and save him from being crushed by the stone giant. Alan becomes furious with him, but before he can say anything, the golem powers down, giving him the opportunity to destroy it. Once the mission is completed, Alan wastes no time in firing Lloyd, claiming that he is useless and always hides in the back. Having been gaslighted for so long into believing he has no real skills, Lloyd accepts the decision without resistance. He searches for another party to join, but no positions are available, leaving him disappointed. Fortunately, a girl arrives at the guild looking for a free white mage urgently, but the receptionist explains that finding someone who meets her conditions will be difficult. With no other options, the receptionist points toward Lloyd. As soon as the pink-haired girl confirms that he is an unemployed white mage, she immediately grabs him and drags him along with her. It turns out that the pink-haired girl Yui is actually part of an S-rank adventurer party, and not long ago they had gone out to hunt down some bandits. Thanks to their teamwork and overwhelming strength, they quickly crushed the bandits and even cornered the boss, telling him to give up. But of course, in classic villain style, the boss pulled out his so-called secret move and summoned a massive stone golem to fight against them. The party quickly figured out that the creature had high resistance to magic, while weak physical attacks would barely leave a mark. That is when Yui decided to step in herself. Being the strongest attacker in her group, she charged at the giant and unleashed her full power. To her disappointment, her attack only left a small scratch, forcing her to retreat and dodge the monster's counter. She then called out to the party's white mage, asking for a buff. The white mage was completely lost in thought, looking like she was daydreaming about grocery shopping at the worst possible time, but after a brief delay she managed to cast the strengthening spell. This gave Yui the boost she needed, and with her next strike, she brought the giant down. After rounding up the bandits, Yui went to speak with the white mage, Clum, who apologized for spacing out because it could have cost Yui her life. Yui told her not to dwell on it, since she already knew that Clum was struggling with serious personal problems. She asked her about home, and in response, Clum handed her a resignation letter, saying she needed to take a break to care for her sick sister. That brings us back to the present, where Yui eagerly drags Lloyd by the hand to her base as if she had just won a prize at the market. Her teammates stand frozen for a moment, stunned that she actually managed to find a white mage, since they were sure she would fail. Yui proudly presents Lloyd to them, though she does not even know his name yet. After that, she introduces her party: Doggaz, the shield bearer, Cross, the archer, and Silica, the mage. Finally, she introduces herself as the swordswoman and the leader, officially welcoming Lloyd into the group. Lloyd looks confused and points out that he never agreed to join, which takes Yui by surprise as she realizes she had never even asked him. Doggaz and Silica immediately see what happened. Yui got so excited that she dragged in a random stranger without explaining anything. They apologize to Lloyd for her enthusiasm. Then they tell Yui that even if she did find a white mage, he cannot replace Clum, and they should just abandon their current mission. Yui gets upset and insists that their client asked for help, so they cannot turn their backs. Lloyd suggests letting another party take over, but Doggaz explains that it is not possible because this is an A-rank quest. Only adventurer parties ranked A and higher can accept such requests, but since all other high-ranking parties are away, only their S-rank group is available. Lloyd is stunned, realizing he is standing among actual S-rank adventurers. A part of him wants to help, but his usual lack of confidence tells him that he is too weak. Yui, however, speaks up on his behalf, telling her companions that Lloyd deserves a chance to prove himself before they dismiss him. She drags him out to the woods for a test, though Lloyd is nervous, certain he will end up embarrassing himself. Yui urges him to do something, but Doggaz tells her that maybe she should at least explain what kind of spell he is supposed to use, because he looks utterly lost. Yui tells Lloyd to cast enchantment magic on all of them. Cross and Silica exchange doubtful looks, thinking that this is impossible since only extremely skilled white mages can pull it off. Lloyd is baffled because after all the build-up about how difficult this role is, she had just asked him to perform what he considers a very basic task. He double-checks if this is really the test, and Yui confirms it. The rest of the group tries to reassure him that he does not need to pretend if he cannot do it, but Lloyd insists that he can. He summons his staff from dimensional storage, which immediately leaves everyone gaping, since storage magic alone is rare enough. He then proceeds to cast 5 different enchantments on them all at once, finishing so quickly that they barely notice. Yui asks him where he even pulled that staff out from, and he explains the storage spell he can use to keep items hidden away. He then asks if she is satisfied with the results of the enchantments, while Yui looks confused, since normally such spells require time and long chance. Everyone immediately begins to feel lighter and stronger after Lloyd's enchantments. To test the effect, Yui casually swings her sword at a large nearby tree, and with just a gentle motion, the blade slices clean through the trunk. Her entire party stares in disbelief, as if she just cut a cake instead of solid wood. Lloyd calmly explains that he cast 5 different enchantment spells on them, and they can hardly believe what they just heard. He goes on to say that casting only one spell for the test seemed far too simple, so he decided to push further and demonstrate his real ability. Yui and the others are left speechless, and Lloyd, misreading their silence, assumes they are disappointed. He puts his staff back into storage, apologizes for wasting their time, and turns to leave, saying that he understands he is not suited to be their white mage. Yui quickly stops him and finally remembers to ask about his past. Lloyd shocks the group by admitting that he was dismissed from the hero's party for being too weak. The others exchange confused glances, wondering just how high the hero's standards are, since none of them have ever seen anyone cast 5 enchantments at once. When Lloyd still insists that he is weak, Cross begins to worry that Lloyd's idea of weakness might be very different from everyone else's. To steer the topic away, Lloyd asks why they don't simply call back their previous white mage. Yui explains that Clum's sister is gravely ill, and Clum had been splitting her time between caring for her and working as an adventurer. Eventually, the burden became too heavy, and she had to step down. Doggers adds that while most lower-ranked quests could be handled without her, the A-rank jobs are simply too difficult without a white mage. The group suddenly grows concerned for Clum, showing that despite her resignation, she is still their friend. Lloyd feels a small twinge of jealousy at hearing how much they care for her, but he hides it by asking if anyone knows the nature of Clum's sister's illness. Yui recalls that her body has been slowly turning into mana stone. Lloyd immediately remembers his master Merlin's lesson, where he learned that mana stones can infect and transform living beings into stone themselves. Back then he wondered if reversing the process was possible, and now he decides to test that theory. He asks Yui to guide him to Clum's house, and she agrees. A frail and weary Clum opens the door, surprised to see her friends. Once inside, Lloyd wastes no time and asks her to describe Sylvie's condition in detail. Clum explains that she and her sister once adventured together, but after Sylvie was injured on a mission, she has been sick ever since. Lloyd asks about the symptoms, and instead of words, Clum leads him to Sylvie's room. The moment the door opens, a wave of malicious mana pours out. When Clum lifts the blanket, Sylvie's arms and legs are revealed to be partially crystallized into mana stone. She explains that Sylvie's mana has gone wild, and her state worsens daily. Fearing her sister has little time left, Clum looks devastated. Lloyd steps forward and asks to try helping, saying that he has a theory that might restore her. Clum refuses at first, reminding him that even the best healers had declared Sylvie's case hopeless. But Lloyd explains his reasoning. Sylvie was likely struck by a high-purity mana stone that began the transformation. He asks if she had been hurt in an area with unusually dense mana. Clum nods, saying that during one mission, they were extracting a mana stone from a cave, and that was where Sylvie was injured. Lloyd then asks to see the wound, and when Clum reveals that her waist has also turned into mana stone, he confirms his suspicion. Shocked, Clum demands to know how he understands all of this, and Lloyd answers that he learned it from his master. Yui then asks Clum to trust Lloyd, at least for one attempt. After hesitating, Clum finally agrees. Lloyd immediately begins by casting a spell to absorb the corrupted mana from Sylvie's body. The process is incredibly difficult for him to bear, but he endures it, explaining that lowering Sylvie's mana to near zero is necessary before any healing can work. He continues to absorb the chaotic energy while simultaneously casting a unique healing spell. Clum notices that the technique is unlike the common healing arts, and Lloyd explains that it is a more powerful, though highly inefficient, variation. It allows him to burn away the corrupted mana as he absorbs it, a risky method, but perhaps the only hope Sylvie has. Clum is left utterly speechless by what she just witnessed, and Yui turns to her, asking if Lloyd is really doing something that impressive. Clum, still overwhelmed, replies that Lloyd is casting two entirely self-made spells simultaneously while enduring a tremendous amount of mana, something even the greatest white mages could never achieve. Soon, Lloyd's risky method begins to show results as Sylvie's petrified body gradually returns to normal. At last, Sylvie regains consciousness, and Clum bursts into tears of joy as she sees her sister alive and well again. Later, with relief washing over her, Clum tells Yui and Lloyd that once her sister has fully recovered, the two of them will adventure together once more. For now, however, she wishes for Lloyd to support Yui's party in her place. Lloyd tries to argue that he is not nearly qualified enough, but Clum brushes that aside, telling him to simply follow what his heart says. Afterward, Yui and the others decide to celebrate Sylvie's recovery with a cheerful party, showering Lloyd with thanks, though he still insists that he is unworthy of such gratitude. Yet, seeing how warmly everyone treats him despite being a newcomer, he shyly asks if they will let him join their party, admitting that he may not be very strong but he wants to be with them. Everyone is pleasantly surprised by his sudden decision, and they happily welcome him into the group. That night, they throw a special welcome party for him. They encourage him to eat to his heart's content, promising that they will cover the bill. Lloyd wastes no time, devouring food as if he had never eaten before, amusing the others who ask if he had been starving. Lloyd, with a full mouth, explains that the food in this town is incredible compared to what he has eaten since childhood. This shocks the group, since the local cuisine is known to be fairly average. Lloyd tells them that his teacher used to prepare whatever came from her garden, wild mushrooms, roasted beast meat, often with no seasoning at all. Because of that, he eventually learned to cook for himself, but even then, He never managed to prepare anything with the kind of flavor he is tasting now. At this point, Yui grows less interested in food and more curious about Lloyd's mysterious teacher. She asks him to share more details, and the others quickly join in as well. Silica asks if his teacher was also a white mage, but Lloyd replies that she was more of a combat mage, saying he often saw distant explosions when she worked alone. Silica is stunned that someone who wasn't even a white mage could train him so well, and Lloyd agrees, adding that Merlin is nothing short of extraordinary. Silica excitedly says she would love to learn from such a person, but Lloyd immediately warns her not to wish for it, saying she would regret that idea for the rest of her life if she ever found out the truth. After they finish discussing Merlin, the group shifts focus back to business. Yui suggests they hold a strategy meeting for their next mission and asks Dagas to explain, since she admits that she is terrible at giving proper presentations. Dagas steps up and explains to Lloyd that their mission is to eliminate monsters that have been destroying local farms. Silica adds that several different species of monsters have banded together to form a single pack. Lloyd is shocked to hear this, as it is his first time encountering such a case. Dagas explains that this is new even for them, which is why they must take it seriously. Cross points out that since the monsters are numerous, he and Yui will have trouble because physical attackers struggle against large groups. Yui agrees, saying that Silica will need to carry the team with wide area spells. Silica, however, admits she feels nervous because such spells consume enormous amounts of mana. Yui then turns to Lloyd, asking if he can use offensive magic. Lloyd replies that he can use basic attack spells, though his results aren't particularly impressive. With that settled, Dagas outlines their formation. He and Yui will gather the monsters into one area so that Silica can strike them all at once. Cross will protect Silica and Lloyd, while Lloyd himself will focus on healing and support. With the plan ready, everyone heads to the inn for rest. Lloyd, however, walks off in another direction, prompting Dagas to stop him and ask where he is going. Lloyd nervously admits that he is too poor to afford a room at the inn. Without hesitation, Dagas hands him a pouch filled with more gold than Lloyd has ever seen in his life. Lloyd is flustered and tries to refuse, but Dagas insists, explaining that it is not charity, he will simply subtract the amount from Lloyd's future salary. Lloyd has no choice but to accept and thanks him sincerely, vowing to repay the kindness through hard work. The next morning, everyone gathers in front of the inn, ready to depart. Yui arrives last and immediately asks where everyone's bags are. To her surprise, the others proudly explain that Lloyd placed them all in his magical storage, so there is no need to worry about luggage anymore. Yui's eyes light up, and she quickly takes advantage of the offer, handing him her belongings as well. Lloyd obliges, storing her things in an instant, leaving the entire group relieved and impressed. Yui and Silica start admiring his incredible skill, but Lloyd calmly tells them that he can actually teach it to everyone. This leaves the group stunned since they had never seen anyone else use such magic before. Lloyd assures them that the basics are easy to pick up, though increasing the storage space requires a fair bit of practice. With that matter settled, the team sets off on their mission. Along the way, Lloyd begins to learn that enjoying the journey is just as important as finishing the quest. Because they do not need to carry heavy bags, they arrive at their first campsite far earlier than expected. Lloyd quickly pulls supplies out of his storage space so they can set up the tents. Yui immediately suggests going to splash around in the river, but Dagas quickly pulls her back, reminding her that chores like firewood and food gathering are still pending. Lloyd volunteers to handle the firewood, and Yui thanks him warmly, clearly happy that her workload has been reduced. Then, instead of helping, she mischievously drags Silica away so the two of them can go for a bath. Meanwhile, Lloyd gathers dried sticks in the forest. While doing so, he spots a familiar fruit from his childhood and decides to collect some for his party members. Suddenly, a scream from Yui makes him drop everything and sprint toward the river. He finds a massive serpent monster attacking the two girls while they are completely defenseless. Without hesitation, Lloyd charges at the beast, landing a strike to distract it. This gives Yui and Silica time to dash to the shore. He patiently waits until they wrap themselves in towels before tossing their weapons back to them. Right after, Lloyd casts 2 enchantments on them, boosting their abilities. Yui lunges forward with her sword, slicing the serpent clean in two. But even the chopped-off head wriggles in defiance, forcing Silica to tell the others to step back before she blasts it with a fireball. To her shock, the spell is far stronger than she is used to, but she fails to realize that Lloyd's enchantments are what gave her such power. Yui thanks Lloyd for saving them and casually asks him to store her sword again. That is when disaster strikes. Her towel slips, giving Lloyd a glimpse of her hidden plot twist. Both of them panic, and although it was not his fault, Lloyd earns a solid slap. After this awkward episode, they return to the camp where Lloyd decides to teach the group storage magic. He instructs them to open a space with their palms, but no one really gets the idea. On Silica's advice, they try again, only to look like clowns squishing invisible balloons. Lloyd begins to feel like a terrible teacher, until suddenly Silica chants the word storage and successfully opens a magic pocket. The group quickly realizes that unlike Lloyd, they cannot cast spells without chanting, but with practice they can still figure it out. Silica manages to store her staff after some effort, though the rest struggle badly. Later that night, when the others are asleep, Lloyd and Yui stay on watch. Yui sits down beside him, sincerely thanking him for joining their party. He jokes that he should actually thank her, since he was unemployed anyway, adding that joining a group beats staying jobless with zero benefits. He then recalls her determination during the quest briefing and asks if there is a deeper reason for her drive. Yui quietly admits that when she was a child, her village was destroyed by monsters and she was the lone survivor. Ever since, she has felt the need to prevent others from facing the same tragedy. Before she can say more, Lloyd suddenly tells her to keep quiet because he senses monsters nearby. She instantly grabs her sword, and Lloyd urges her to wake the others. Soon the whole group is prepared, facing a swarm of spider monsters. However, they quickly realize the numbers are overwhelming and decide to retreat slowly. While backing away, Yui accidentally steps on a twig, producing a loud snap that makes the spiders lock onto their position. The entire party takes off at full speed, but the spiders catch up, surrounding them and spitting sticky webs from their rear ends. The adventurers fend off the first wave, but one spider manages to snag Silica's staff and drags it away. The spiders then trap the group inside a cage of silk, and panic spreads quickly. Lloyd steps up, saying that they should stop the spiders where they stand, before thinking about defeating them. Without wasting time, he enchants his teammates and directs Yui to strike first. She leaps high, slicing through the sticky web like a blade through noodles. Cross uses the opening to recover Silica's staff and tosses it back to her. Meanwhile, Yui charges at one of the spiders, blocking its sticky spray and chopping off its legs in swift motions. Then, using the squirt of silk like a surfboard, she rides across it to reach a second spider and slices its legs off too. Next, Lloyd calls Silica and Cross to join the offensive. Silica forms a cluster of fireballs, and Cross shoots arrows straight through them, turning each arrow into a flaming projectile. The fiery barrage slams into the spiders, setting them ablaze. Just like that, the battle ends with crispy critters all around. Afterward, Lloyd realizes he had been shouting out commands even though he was still the newest member of the group. Feeling a bit embarrassed, he apologizes for overstepping, but Dagas reassures him, pointing out that he clearly has the instincts of a natural-born leader. The others agree and encourage him to keep guiding the party during fights. By the next morning, everyone has practiced enough to use the storage magic on their own, carrying their own luggage without issues. As they continue their journey, Lloyd can't help but wonder why the spider monsters were lurking in that area in the first place. The story will be continued in future videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.